Hey, thanks a lot, Chris. Well, pop-up markets growing in popularity. We're seeing them more in the Charlotte area, and later this month, dozens of vendors are going to be gathering together for the Vintage Charlotte Winter Market. And here to talk more about it is Amy Herman, who is the founder of Vintage Charlotte. Amy, it's great to have you with us here
Thanks
today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Off camera, we were talking about how these wonderful items here I would like to have at my place, but we may not do that right now. I have to go to the show. Tell us a little bit about what this is all about.
Sure. Vintage Charlotte is basically a pop-up market. We have about 60 vendors this time around, and what we try to do is really focus our time and energy on providing Charlotte with all of the best vintage and handmade goods from local and regional vendors.
And when you say vintage, how would you characterize that?
I usually think of vintage as being 20-plus years old. So we're talking about anything from early 90s, which I know doesn't seem vintage, to antique and older.
Oh my gosh, and we've got a few examples here. I love these cameras, and can you tell me anything more about these?
Yeah, the cameras are always a very popular item at the market. Several different vintage vendors will be bringing cameras, and I know that there's actually going to be one included in a social media giveaway that we're doing as
really?
well.
Oh,
so
wow.
It's one way to kind of get one for free if you follow us on social.
Oh, maybe I'll have to do that. We were talking too about typewriters, because I would love to have a typewriter, and you expect there will be typewriters.
Definitely.
There. But it's not just equipment like this. You have some other things here too.
Yeah, so I've just brought a little sampling from 3 different local artists. These are ceramic vases made by Powder Studio. They're porcelain, and so they're sculptural but also usable. And Powder Studio actually specializes in lights, but I was unable to bring a light and hook it up, so I went with their vases. And then we have some Charlotte-based drawings. This is the Beckler, and then we have the 3 kind of different cityscapes, and these are by a local artist, and his studio is called GA Studio Drawings. And so he has actually pulled these pictures from Google Street View, and then he draws them.
Was this a fellow who was just featured in that big article in the Charlotte Observer?
Gosh,
I can't
don't
remember
know.
the name, but there's a wonderful story.
His name is Aaron.
I believe that may be him who does this. It's a wonderful art, and not many people are doing it anymore.
Yes, and he's actually an architect by trade,
yes,
so you can see the very architectural details.
That's so good. Okay, we've got about a minute left.
All right.
This right here, I know a lot of people will be interested in something like this.
This is just an example of a vintage wallet, which a lot of our vendors are bringing vintage clothing and house goods. So you're able to find a huge assortment, and the great thing about vintage is you never know what there's going to be to buy. And so what we recommend is if you're looking for the hard-to-find vintage, that you get there early, because it is a very well-attended event. And so what you can actually do is you can pay $5 to get in at 10 o'clock. The door is open to the public for free at 11.
All right, this is going to be November 15th, which is a week from this Saturday, and it's at the Fillmore. And there you can see the hours. It's free admission unless you do want to pay to get in there a little early, which probably isn't a bad idea. And VintageCharlotte.com has got that. Speaking of vintage, I don't know if you consider Star Wars vintage, but I just read that the Halloween costume that was made when Star Wars came out, which is more than 20 years ago, sold for a mere $315,000. So.
That's nothing. We can afford that, right?
But all price ranges there, right?
Correct.
Yeah, and it's for adults and children.
All ages.
But no furry friends, please.
Right.
How about that? Amy Herman, it's a pleasure to have you with us here today.
Thanks so much.
Looking forward to this. It's going to be a wonderful thing, and one of those Underwood typewriters.
I'll put one on there.
Okay, thank you, Amy. I appreciate it. All right, stay with us. A final check of weather next on WBTV.